The thought of space travel and exploration is incredibly attractive to most people on Earth. But did you know astronauts have to sacrifice many basic luxuries, including proper sleep, long showers, and the warmth of an early morning coffee? Join us in today's video as we explore the strangest everyday routines of astronauts, moving from the simplest to the weirdest. Without further delay, let's dive in. Even for children, brushing your teeth is literally the easiest morning routine task. However, astronauts most likely disagree, because brushing your teeth in space is not a piece of cake. First, astronauts attach their toothpaste to a wall that's close by. Next, they squeeze a small drop of water from the drink pouch and scoop it with their toothbrush. It instantly absorbs the water, and the astronauts repeat the same procedure for the toothpaste. Once the process is completed, they take out the brush, scoop some water over it, and wipe it with a towel. However, they cannot spit out the contents from their mouth, so they take a small sip of water and swallow the whole thing. Thankfully, swallowing a tiny bit of toothpaste doesn't have any life-threatening side effects. However, astronauts are advised to use NASA's foamless ingestible toothpaste called NASA Dent. If brushing your teeth is this difficult, you can imagine how problematic shaving could be. Even with gravity's help on Earth, hair particles still find a way to fly around. So imagine what they'll be up to when they're let loose in a microgravity environment. As astronauts sometimes spend months in space, this problem had to be solved. Using a normal clipper could cause serious complications on ISS, so a vacuum electric trimmer is used to shave in space. If it hadn't been for that machine, facial hair would be everywhere on ISS, including the lungs of astronauts, as they would literally inhale each other's hair. Health-wise, the consequences of a happening like that would be devastating, and the same applies to restroom use. Back in 1961, America's first man to enter space peed his pants. And for the Gemini and Apollo missions, astronauts were commanded to use limited amounts of water to bathe, so they returned to Earth kind of stinky. The astronauts had been in their suits so long without changing their clothes so that the scent lingered the entire time. Jennifer Levershaw, a museum creator at the Space History Department, said, "It was a slap in the face to those who greeted them upon their return because the scent was so strong," she added. The situation has changed since then, as in the year 2000, NASA installed the first toilet on the ISS. Fast forward to 2018, the agency spent $23 million to design a newly improved vacuum toilet system. The new toilet is more comfortable, easier to use for both men and women, and lighter, NASA researcher James Blair said. This system features a hose strapped to a funnel for peeing and a mini suction toilet seat for pooping. As NASA astronaut Megan McArthur said, astronauts can't take showers in space or the water would go everywhere. So, astronauts use rinse-less shampoo, no-rinse soap, water and towels to clean up and stay fresh. The air conditioning system will pick up the condensation both from the towel and from any hair and put that back into the water reclamation system, Megan added. Around 90% of all water-based liquids are recycled in space, including urine and sweat. Explaining how things work in space, NASA astronaut Jessica Meir said, "When it comes to our urine on ISS, today's coffee is tomorrow's coffee." Speaking about coffee, that's one great way to start your day. But for many years, astronauts were unable to partake in this morning ritual. Nowadays, there are several ways of drinking coffee in space. Initially, astronauts relied on freeze-dried coffee sealed in plastic bags. But as time passed, scientists invented the IS espresso machine. Named after the International Space Station, the IS espresso machine is used to make coffee, tea, broth, or other hot beverages. It was a great leap from the days of freeze-dried coffee. However, it was still limited because astronauts still needed to hold the contents in plastic bags. But not anymore, because NASA astronaut Donald Pettit invented a zero-gravity cup that allows astronauts to enjoy coffee in the same way that we do on Earth. But there's still a huge challenge ahead because there is a long list of food and drink that you can't eat in space. Bread, crackers and cookies are barred from the ISS because they produce an enormous amount of crumbs. So astronauts have to make do with tortillas. Salt and pepper are prohibited too because nobody wants chili spices flying into their eyes. Thankfully, astronauts can use liquid alternatives instead. Alcohol, carbonated drinks, chips, astronaut ice cream and any food that cannot be stored for long are prohibited in space. Despite travelling at neck-breaking speeds and defying the law of gravity in orbit, astronauts are humans as well. They have feelings like the rest of us and tend to show it from time to time through laughter or crying. Both emotions can be expressed in space. However, crying in space is not exactly the same as what it is down here, and NASA astronaut Clayton C. Anderson describes how. I cried in space several times due to some very emotional circumstances. Crying is exactly the same as here on Earth, except the tears don't fall down as there is no gravity. Not a big deal at all. The emotions I experienced, however, were a big deal. To emphasise Anderson's point, famous Canadian astronaut Chris Hadfield had this to say: "Your eyes make tears, but they stick as a liquid ball. In fact, they sting a bit, so space tears don't shed. Instead, they form a ball around your eye and it gets bigger as you continue to cry. The only remedy would be to wipe off the ball with a towel." With reference to remedy, let's just clear it once and for all. Everyone loves a good night's sleep, even the workaholic at the office. On Earth, an average person would fall asleep between 10 to 20 minutes, providing the basic sleeping amenities are all in place. But for astronauts, it's a luxury that is a lot more complicated than you'd imagine. To start with, the International Space Station suffers 16 sunrise and sunsets in a day. Plus, it's a zero world out there in space, so astronauts are weightless and they can choose to sleep in whichever position they deem fit. But that's where the problem lies exactly. Because of the microgravity, astronauts float all the time. There's a huge risk of astronauts colliding with gadgets inside the ISS when they sleep. To avoid this, astronauts have to sleep in a well-ventilated confined area called a sleeping station. This station contains basic items such as sleeping bags, earplugs, sleep masks, and even a laptop. Despite having all these amenities, astronauts still need an average of 90 minutes to fall asleep in space. This vastness is just about 62 miles from Earth, but crossing the Karman Line makes some of our everyday tasks a real challenge.